to be in the situation where you realize, oh, wait, they actually do require it, and now the time is up and I don't have time to do my standardized testing. So next, looking at our course grades. So each college sometimes, usually, will have their own system for GPA calculation. I know the UCs have their own GPA calculation, so it might be a little higher by the end of the UC app, but not all colleges do that. They just have standard, what's your weighted and unweighted. And then some colleges also allow extracurriculars to compensate for grades more than others, which is really interesting, is what I touched on earlier. A great example of this is if you're looking at UCLA and UC Berkeley. They're both 15 in the nation, but if you look at UCLA and their admission statistics, they often accept people with higher GPAs than people at Berkeley. So UCLA is more GPA focused. They want people closer to a 4.0, unweighted, and they're really looking for applicants who are very strong academically as well as extracurricularly. But if you look at people who go to Berkeley, their applications tend to be full more of unique or untraditional, I should say, extracurriculars, and I found just that most people who go to Berkeley really did go there for that reason. But yeah, just over these two colleges in the same system, but both look at admissions a little bit in a different way, even though they're ranked at the exact same spot. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And most colleges will consider your applicant's high school environment. So your environment, how many AP classes does your high school offer? That will take into account, like, oh, what college credit can I have? What's the average GPA at your high school? If it's a little lower on the weighted, that might mean, oh, okay, they might not be able to take AP classes until later, which will signify that it's not entirely your fault as a student if your APs don't weigh into the weighted category of your grades as high as maybe students from other schools, because some schools just don't have as many AP or IB classes to offer, which mine definitely didn't. We only had 15. So that was something to look into and also to just take note of. Okay, so we finished the academics portion of this. Does anyone have any questions at all? I am more than happy to answer any, even if I didn't touch on it throughout this. I have a lot of advice when it comes to the academics portion, because in my opinion, that was the part of my application that was the weakest, and so I really reflected on it. If you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them in the questions box or in the chat, whatever you'd like. I'll give you all a moment to do that, and then we'll continue on. Okay. Okay, I think we're good to move on then. Let's go next into part 3, which we'll be talking about the extracurriculars. And this is one of my favorite sections. Obviously, I think it's the most fun because you get to do things that you're really passionate about or participate in projects that you really enjoy or, find like comfort in. And you really get to make it a part of your high school life and your career. So let's dive into it a little bit more. So first, extracurriculars are what make you stand out to those admissions officers. So admissions officers use extracurriculars to determine your ability to lead, to succeed, adapt to the university environment that you're applying to. They also might be able or be used to assess whether you are passionate about what you're doing. Extracurriculars are a crucial part of your application because they reveal much about you as a person, not just as a student or an academic. And when we say, that they're assessing if you're actually passionate about what you do, I bring back that pointy student that I was talking about earlier. The pointy students will probably have extracurriculars that all fall under the same belt of things that they're interested in. And of course, it doesn't have to be the case. For me, my extracurriculars actually, when I first presented them, I thought these actually don't coordinate at all, but looking back, a lot of them were focused on community growth, and public health and a lot of things like that. So I was actually more of a pointy student than I thought I was, but really try to cater your extracurriculars to things that you're passionate about and you can weave a story together with. So let's talk about the different tiers of extracurriculars. So first, so we're gonna go an opposite direction of this, but let's just talk about them top bottom. So the tier one is the most unique, rare, and excellent extracurriculars that you can put into your application that will really make you stand out. Number two is the impressive extracurriculars that show high leadership positions and involvement, but don't give you as many points as the first tier. The third tier are activities that really show that you were involved in your community. You were a little bit involved. You had some working there, but they again don't give you as many points as the first two tiers. And then tier number four are sort of things that every average high schooler will do at some point. Common activities, common sports, or being a member of a club. And those are seen as a majority of applicants will be having them. And so it's also something to look out for. You really want your extracurriculars to stand out. Okay, so let's talk about tier 4 of the extracurriculars. So tier 4, they're really common are common activities that admissions officers see very frequently. So tier 4 extracurriculars are not very useful for your admission. However, they will help you shape yourself and your persona, and the person you are behind your application. So some examples of those tier 4 sports might be JV sports with the small achievement or commitment. Say you did it for 4 years, all 4 years. That shows commitment. You did it over a long span of time. And then maybe membership of a club, but you're just a member. You might help out with the volunteering, but you're not really showing that you're active in the community by being in the leadership or taking on a position. And then things like low impact or random volunteering. Say every once in a while you go volunteer at the animal shelter, but then you go volunteer to plant trees. It doesn't really show who you are as a person, doesn't show what you're interested in. So you really want to cater those sort of extracurriculars again to certain things that will create just a holistic person and someone that they can really be like, okay, I see that this person has passions that they want to work towards. So tier 3 extracurriculars are acceptable activities that show small leadership and involvement. So some examples of that might be minor leadership position in the club, say secretary or treasurer, or participating in fundraisers for your club with little achievement. But if you guys raise money for the cause that you're working towards, that's great. Apologies, I'm not sure why it keeps switching me out. Okay, moving forward. And then, something like Player of the Week. You're being highlighted for your achievements and your commitment to showing your community that you are a team player. So that could be also one. Let's also think of something like marching band. That's a bit more of an eccentric extracurricular, or just something that you have to dedicate a lot of time to. Marching band takes quite a lot of time out of a person's schedule. So, that also shows consistency. And a big thing with any of your extracurriculars is that you want to show consistency. One of the biggest things that I see applicants do is that they really want to try and get into a top college, but what it seems that they're doing for themselves is that they have some really good extracurriculars, but they're not showing dedication to them because they're over within a few months. I was in NHS or National Honor Society 1 year, then Key Club the next year, and then I was in this club for 1 semester. It's like those sort of things. You're not showing commitment. You really want to show commitment to your extracurriculars because that's how you show you're passionate about them. Let's now go and talk about tier 2. So tier 2 extracurriculars are impressive and show high positions of leadership and involvement with the community. So some examples of that might be starting a club, or being an important position in a high impact club or organization, so such as NHS or Key Club. Those are two of the biggest ones for student bodies. Relevant internships, so internships that are relevant to what you are trying to accomplish with your college degree, or what you're thinking you want to accomplish as an adult with your career. And then creating organization. This is also a really big one. It can be definitely difficult, but this is a really great one to add to your applications. Definitely give you more points. But I would again say it's very clear to applicants, to admissions officers, when you aren't passionate about your extracurriculars and it feels like the work is being done just to put it on a piece of paper. So I would say really try and make each extracurricular something that you are happy to indulge in, so that you can really reap the rewards of it. And then other activities such as high commitment, high achievement activities. So these are things like ASB president or ASB vice president, sort of things like that. Okay, now tier 1 extracurriculars. So tier 1 extracurriculars are extremely rare, unique, and they tell the admissions officers that you will probably do really well at an Ivy or at any top college just because they'll be able to say, oh, this person has initiative. Initiative is one of the big things they look for when it comes to your extracurriculars. So some examples might include internationally ranked in a field. So say you went to a robotics competition and you ranked first with your team. That's very impressive for the nation. That's very impressive and definitely will look and reflect onto your admissions paper well. International awards, again, sort of in that same field, but again, very impressive. Attending a highly distinguished research program for whatever industry it is that you're interested in. This is another one that's really, really big. Creating a global initiative that impacts thousands. Highlight like our wonderful CEO. He made this company, which is really awesome, as a high schooler. And those sort of extracurriculars will definitely get you far, and they're not easy to do. A lot of these higher achievement extracurriculars are things that do come with a lot more effort. And so I really encourage you to do your best to make sure that all the fine details of your extracurriculars are put into place and done well. Okay, and then starting an extremely profitable business. I know someone who did this and now is going to Columbia. Really great for her. She started her own jewelry business, and that was one of her big ventures during high school. And it really led her to become a bigger person and also know how to manage a business and also learn how to manage, talking with other people and communicating. It was a really great experience for her. And I know that was one of the big things that stood out for her on her application. Now, another thing could be prestigious summer programs with significant impact after the program. So if you join a summer program and you then create a product that is, worth mentioning and worth putting out into the world, that is definitely something that you can also do and put onto your resume. So next, I believe one last thing. So extracurriculars and like what they sort of demonstrate to those admissions officers. So they demonstrate, again, leadership, passion, a desire to succeed, perseverance, resilience, determination, and individuality, which are all things you really are trying to hone in for your application. You really want your admissions officers to be able to see that through the repetition and through the ongoing efforts to make all of your extracurriculars be fluid and work well for you. And with that, that is the end of, nope, it is not the end of the section. Apologies. So let's do some finding your extracurriculars, a bit more advice about that. So again, yep, just like I said earlier, colleges want a well-rounded class, not a well-rounded student. So what do you want to pursue? Extracurriculars related to what you want to pursue show admissions officers that you're interested in the subject and that you're willing to put the work into doing that subject well. It's beneficial to have extracurriculars related to your desired major to contribute significantly to your class. So again, pointy student, you want to do things and do extracurriculars that are going to get you, oh, this person is excellent in this field, so they're going to be of significance to their entire student body. Internships or similar extracurriculars are great for showing admissions officers your commitment and achievements in a certain field. And so let's talk about also like something you're passionate about. What is something that you're passionate about? Showing passion in your application is essential to creating a outstanding application. A great way to do this is creating a passion project that creates impact within your own community. That could be local, regional, statewide, or nationally. Nationally, of course, might be a little harder to obtain, but impact is everything. They really want to see that you did things to help the people around you and to support your community, especially in questions and the PIQs for the UCs. That is one of the questions they usually ask every single year is, what have you done to impact your community? And that's a big one because a lot of people have done something to help their community or to create a community for themselves in a place where they don't see themselves well represented. So another thing, our passion projects, again, are a great way to show your admissions officers more of who you truly are and how you will fit into their campus. Okay, so that was let's see. So that was the end of the first section. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat or in the questions box.
I do see one question in the chat box.
Okay. Could you read it to me? It seems that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is it?
So it's asking, what if the GPA is calculated separately in different schools?
Oh, okay. So if it's calculated separately in different schools, your admissions officers are going to take that into account because, again, they can't put all students on one like blank pedestal. It's more about equity in this case. If a school doesn't offer as many AP classes, then that's simply just not fair because those weighted GPAs are going to statistically be lower than other schools that allow their students to take AP classes from maybe freshman year. So my school didn't allow us to take them until junior year, really, unless it was an AP language. So our weighted GPAs were a lot less than what you'd see at something like Berkeley High School, where they have a lot of resources and a lot of IB and AP credit classes. So again, this is something that the college admissions offices are going to be looking into investigating. So that's not something to worry about as much. But I would say to play it safe, really do try and be on that equal playing field as if all the schools do calculate the same, just because that way you'll hold yourself up to a standard that might be a little higher than what you're actually being put under. And it's always good to achieve for the stars as well. Are there any more questions that we had from the extracurriculars part? I am also very open to giving more examples of things.
Emma, so I think in the questions box, there are quite a few.
Okay, it seems I'm not getting any of them.
Okay, is Argent, do you want me to read them?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so the first question is like, how many APs and honors courses should I take each year?
Okay, each year. So it depends on what you can handle. I would say it also depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So again, if you want to be really good in the sciences or the arts, you really want to take AP courses that are, you know, shifting you into that specific streamlined industry. So it really does depend. I would say rule of thumb, if your school allows you to take them immediately, maybe try taking one your freshman year, see how it goes. But another thing that I really want to stress is that this is coming from an admissions officer herself. She discussed how she was asked a question. She was asked, would you rather see students who have very rigorous classes and might have lower grades in those classes, or students who have less rigorous classes and all A's? And she said, we want to see students who have rigorous classes and all A's. So it's really about what you can handle. I've known people who have made the mistake of taking too many and then their grades slip and suffer. So my best advice to you is to do your very hardest to just take as many as you can handle and what is right for you. I would say rule of thumb though, one your freshman year if you're able to do that and handle it just fine. And this also depends on your school and your teachers. Some teachers are easier or harder than others, and unfortunately that's just the case. It's never going to be the same. I would say 2 or 3 your sophomore year if you can handle that. I know Worlds I think is offered in sophomore year, and I want to say Lang. So if that's something that you're interested in as well, you are more than welcome to, try and do that as well. Then your junior and senior year, you really want to pump it up, but especially your junior year, and you want to take a majority of your AP classes in your junior year. That is typically what is seen as the hardest year in high school, just because you're leveling up to a new standard of rigor that has never been asked of you before. Okay. And then senior year, take as many as you like again. So are there any more questions? Because they aren't coming up for me.
I see one more
so
actually.
okay,
They're asking, can I still get into a top school if I don't have a tier 1 EC?
Of a tier 1 EC? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I personally, from what my application and measuring it by these schools and from other people that I know as well, I don't technically have a tier 1 EC. I have quite a few tier 2 that all sort of collectively make me as a person. But I don't think that my ECs are necessarily top, like tier 1. I would say for an Ivy school, that is more essential. If you're looking to get into more like UCLA or UC Berkeley or I don't know, Boston University or U Chicago, things like that. NYU, you can get away without having one, I would say, on your application. But I would stress that for the Ivies, you really do want to have as many excellent and outgoing extracurriculars as you can. But again, it just depends on your holistic application. If your academics do well and your essays are excellent, then your extracurriculars can slip a little more. If your academics aren't as strong, but your extracurriculars and your essays are excellent, again, same thing there. If you have a weak point, you really want to try to balance it out with the other aspects of your application. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, one more popped up too. They're asking, should I express interest in continuing my extracurriculars after getting into college?
Oh, definitely. I think also from what I can remember on the application, they'll ask you that, like, is this something you're interested in, looking forward to also participating in college? And I would say definitely, this is something you want to express because that continued interest shows that you have drive and you have passion. And they really want to see students who have drive because those students are going to be the ones who, elect to find new innovative aspects of their community that they can elevate throughout their extracurriculars, or say like you have a student who's really into political science and really into debates, so they want to do that in college and then become a lawyer. So these are all sort of things that you want to try and display that you're going to continue them, or that you would like to, or explore the options of continuing them as you go into college. Okay, and if there are any more questions.
Yeah, there's one more. So how many APs did you take? Yeah, that's mainly it, because I think you already answered how many
Yeah,
APs
that's all
you
good.
took.
So again, like I said, my high school only offered 15. We didn't offer anything like AP Lang, AP World, AP US History, that econ, none of that was offered at my high school. So we had less resources. My senior year, I took 4, and I want to say my junior year, I think I might have also taken 4. But we also had these things called honors classes. So we had pre-calculus honors, which is essentially equivalent to Calc AB, but we weren't allowed to take Calc AB in our junior year. So I did pre-calc honors, but I could still take the Calc AB test. It just wouldn't add to my weighted GPA. So I think in total, I've calculated before, I think I took 6 APs and 4 honors. So again, not a lot, but that's only for my school and what the resources my school allotted me. If your school offers more, the college admissions offices are probably going to want to see more on your application.
Okay, last question. So since you said creating a business slash nonprofit, what has been like the case in recent years is a lot of students create nonprofits. And so is starting a business a better EC because nonprofits are more common?
Not, this is a hard question to answer because it really depends on what your nonprofit is for. you can label really any like organization. You can get it assigned to be a nonprofit through the government and be legally classified as such, but it depends on the impact that your nonprofit is making. So a nonprofit that, like generates a couple hundred for a specific cause every year, that's impressive because there's a lot of work that goes behind that. But to say a nonprofit that has reached globally, has touched the lives of many people, has influenced many, and has raised thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars for a specific cause. And I'm not saying that this is necessary, but again, these are things that are very like impressive. That's going to stand out. I would say it really also depends on your application. So for me, I was really interested in things like voting rights and creating inclusive environments. I founded 3 different clubs at my school. Technically, it was, yeah, 3. But and then I also started half of a program with the League of Women Voters because I was really interested in voter rights. And so my other clubs were, I was the president and founder of ASL Club and the president and founder of Green Team, and then I was included in some other things as well. But all of those extracurriculars wrapped up were focused towards community and building a community that I could feel that I could belong in and that the people around me could belong in as well. And just creating accessibility. So those were my ECs, and they really pointed towards one thing. So that's kind of the umbrella that I had myself under. And for me, if I ever wanted to have started a nonprofit, it would probably have been best for me to do a nonprofit rather than a business, because if I'm doing it from a community health sort of standard, it would benefit to see that, oh, this person is going out and doing things to better their community without the want of making money and for the betterment of, their overall society. That's where they're created, to help other people, and to use the profits of a company to really extend towards others a helping hand. So it really depends on your application. If you're super into things like, building tech or like coding or website building or anything really that is sellable, 1000% create a business and not a nonprofit. Unless you really want to use those nonprofit, the revenue you create from it to help other people, it doesn't really matter. It is more common to see nonprofits now, but it really depends on the impact, as we talked earlier, the impact you're able to create. That is the most essential part of any of your extracurriculars. Okay. Were there any other questions? No?
I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So let's move on then. Let's go on to the essays, which personally, I think people find this to be the most challenging part, but it was my favorite part of the college application process because, again, you get to be creative, and I really like to write, so that's probably did me well. But, this is really a chance to show who you are and to stand out. So let's talk a little bit about it. So what are the college essays? So colleges will usually provide a set number of questions, and it depends on what college you're applying to as well. So I know for USC, they have a bunch of different standardized questions and a bunch of mini questions as well. And I know Harvard has a bunch of mini ones too. Princeton has some very interesting ones that are shorter. But overall, they're all like, they're reaching and aiming to gather the same thing from a person. If they can paint themselves on paper through words for your admissions officer, they can really tell who you are by the end of your application. And then for the UCs, of course, it's the 8 PIQs you get to choose from, the 4 out of the 8. So, each college is going to have their own way of doing college essays. So the importance, it's the most personalized part of your application. Again, you really get to sell yourself to your admissions officer. If all else fails and you feel like, actually, I didn't do that well in my academics or my extracurriculars, I feel like I don't have that much, but I have an interesting story. Tell that story. They want to see who you are. So you also get to use this part as a reinforcement of your application, which You can also restate or introduce new aspects of your life. So you can talk about those ECs and how they really benefited you. Or if you have something else you'd like to bring into your application that maybe you didn't mention before, and what you couldn't mention through your extracurriculars. And if it's a big part of who you are, I highly recommend that you do so. So let's go over this part. So first, most personalized section of the application. This is a chance to reveal the person behind all those statistics, all those numbers. The admissions officers want to know who you are as an applicant. And this is your way to craft a personal story that can really help you and give them an image of how you might transition into their college. So secondly, it really demonstrates your characteristics. Essays are the best tool to demonstrate your personal character. Through experiences and achievements, you can show leadership, motivation, perseverance, and other college-ready qualities, but you have the chance to talk about them in a sense that it really impacted you and forged a brighter future for yourself. And then third, it reinforces application with restated or new aspects of your life, like we just talked about. So finally, those essays are another opportunity to restate or introduce impressive achievements, involvements, or feats. Additionally, this is a place for non-academic aspects displaying your character. So you can talk about family life, your school, maybe how your childhood was, or something that's more personal to you and really impacted who you became as a young adult today. So now let's talk about what to include in your essays. So these are 3 points we'll be going over, what to include. So any statements that help you stand out, any struggles you went through or challenges that you grew out of and how they made you better, any passion project or extracurricular that showcases your character to the admissions officer. So those are the big 3. And we have more we can talk about later as well. So your career application guidance, let's, oh, I'm sorry, I believe this was for someone else.
Yeah.
I'll say a little bit more about this though, just real quick before I hand it off. But a big thing when it comes to your applications is that I would say really talk about the things that you felt for you were truly the most enjoyable. I had a lot of things I could write about for my PIQs. Those are the ones I honestly focused my most time on because I was really wanting to go to EC. And I really spent most of my time on my PIQs and I spent a lot of time on them. But the thing I'll say is that I wrote about things that I personally really loved to have been a part of. Because I think that shows the most genuine energy from myself, and I think it'll show the most genuine energy from you. I think I wrote about a business that I once had, about starting that program. I wrote about volunteering at this one place that I loved volunteering there because it was such a magical amalgamation of a lot of different aspects of people's character and interaction, and also I got to kind of work retail, which was fun, but all for free, and I got to do it for the benefit of puppies, which was really fun. And I did that for 200 plus hours. So that's another thing also I should have mentioned earlier. But if you're gonna do volunteering, try and dedicate a lot of time to it. They want to see that you racked up a lot of hours for that volunteering. And then I also chose the PIQ that's if you have anything left to tell us, basically the one that's blank. And I talked about, hey, actually, I really love California. And why is that? I moved around my entire life throughout California. I've also lived in Texas, but they didn't have to know that. And I talked about how it impacted me and how it helped me grow and become a better person. And those were all things that were very important to me. I also want to say that I do have a document of just some example PIQ responses from students in my year who go to Berkeley or Irvine and some to Davis as well, that I can share with you. If any of you would like that, you are more than welcome to submit that as part of the chat and say oh yes, I'd like that, and I can provide it to you all. But I think it gives a good view of what you should be gauging for when it comes to painting your extracurriculars. And there are a bunch of websites that you can look to see what they've written about. Also, I would really like to stress that you should not be writing in anyone else's style but your own. It's very common and prevalent for students to take on a college essay sort of tone but you really don't want to do that. It's going to damage your authenticity when it comes to your essays, and you really just want to avoid that. So write in a voice that's your own. But of course, you want to make it more elevated, more narrative. These essays are meant to paint a story, so you want to make them narrative. Don't sound flat, but also maybe don't sound too whimsical or like your head is above the clouds, because it won't come off as professional, and it'll just feel like, okay, this person's going on about things that don't really matter, or like they don't feel like they matter. So you really want to just find a good structure that you can infuse that passion you dedicated all those hours to. But write in a voice that's comfortable to you, because that's when your true, genuine self will come out. So now I'll hand it off to talk about this cool opportunity that we have here at STEMplicity.
All right, yeah. So I'm aware that we did drop a lot of information on you guys, so you might feel a little overwhelmed, or it might seem a little daunting from the process of, oh, how do I do my applications? Like, I may have extracurriculars, or I might have taken these honors and AP classes and all that, but you don't know how to still formulate your application. So that's where we're going to step in, and we're offering a career application guidance program. So in a way, we're going to guarantee a competitive edge in college admissions. So what we're offering is that over 6 weeks, you'll research universities, craft your applications, develop your resume, and polish your personal statements, build your activities and honors list, and draft your supplemental essays. So like I said earlier, you have these things that you've done through your high school career, but that might not just be enough. The way you word is crucial, and the way you develop everything is also crucial, which is why we're offering this program. And what you'll get with this program is you get access from one-on-one mentorship from Stanford students, essays, transforming and brainstorming guides, and university research templates. And then we'll provide like previous admit essays, personalized application strategies, and parent-involved consultancy. So as a whole, we'll be able to help you guide through your college application process, and we'll act as a crutch so we can let you get to your goal. And if you have any other questions about this program or anything Emma's mentioned earlier, feel free to ask. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for talking about that. And now we'll open it up to a general Q&A. I do have some also other recommendations if you'd all like to hear them. But
I do
first,
see one question. Someone is interested in that document you were mentioning earlier.
oh, yes, I'll definitely be sure to drop that in the chat once I stop sharing my screen so that I can find it real quick. But I found it very helpful, and I really hope that it's of benefit to you all as well. Are there any other questions? Something else I also wanted to bring in earlier, I'm sure you all know about it, but if you don't, if you go onto College Vine, which is a sort of like you get to put in, unfortunately my Mac is dying. You get to put in information about who you are, so your GPA, your SAT scores, your extracurriculars, and basically it'll tell you the chance of admission you have to getting into a university. Like for me, for example, I got in, or I was said to have a chance of 25% getting into Berkeley and 25% getting into UCLA. I got into Berkeley and I was waitlisted and then rejected from UCLA. So, you know, it's a give and take, but it does give you a good idea of what you want to work towards, or what, you know, what your odds might be, especially as I said that those college admission rates are dropping. It's important to make sure that you're assessing where you are realistically. I know it can feel daunting to be realistic about your future, especially because as high school students, you're all still children and you really do have to like make very adult decisions as a high schooler. And it is a very big nationwide competition to get into college, but that's why we have to take it seriously, to make sure that you're ensuring the best path for yourself and for your future. Yeah, so are there any other questions? No other questions? No further questions?
Yeah, there's a question. So is it too late to start a club senior year, or is that still useful in applications? If so, would you explain the plan that you think would be helpful?
Okay. in your senior year. So it's a bit trickier because, again, like I said earlier, you really want to show that you've had consistency with your application. So you wanted to have shown that you've been doing it for a long time. But I would say it's never too late. Technically, my program that I started, I call it a club, but it's technically a program because it's from an outside operation that gets to work inside of my high school. Um, I was president and founder of it my senior year. So I first created it in my junior year. But then it really got working and we got to actually work on our projects in senior year. So that was one of my big accomplishments and it happened towards the end of my senior year. So what I would say when it comes to starting a club is think about something that you actually find enjoyable or impactful in a subject that you're interested in. Again, mine was about voting rights and access to voting material. So for us, I decided, I'm going to make this program. I'm going to plan it all out. I have to make sure I have permissions from these people, and I have to register separately because I'm not an in-school club again. But look at the resources your school has for starting clubs. You can also, if you have friends who are club, starters or leadership for clubs, you can always ask them as well. They're sure they'll be more help to you and for your high school than maybe I could be. But I would really say when it comes to starting your club, again, really find something that you'll actually want to invest your time into, and then be consistent. I would say you can start now. You can technically create a club during your summer. You can meet during the summer. Again, as long as you have that consistency, do it as much as you possibly can to show that you really dedicated those hours to your club and to the initiative that your club is trying to run. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure, especially, I want to say it was on the UCs, you can assess how many hours you put into something. It might be the same for the Common App. I can't quite remember. It's been a little while, but yeah, you get to put down how many hours, and they can't tell you yes or no. Again, I wouldn't recommend that you cheat your way out of that. I would recommend being honest. Because if you have an honest amount of hours for the specific amount of time that you've done, it actually shows that you went above and beyond to put in time that maybe you didn't have to make that succeed. If you're a senior who started a club that they're really passionate about, has a good amount of people, has done a significant amount of hours for being a senior, having heavy coursework, having college apps to worry about, having maybe sports, and maybe if you play an instrument or other things outside of that, it stands out more to see that, oh, this person within this amount of time that they were given or that they had to start and function with this club, they actually put in a respectable amount of hours into it. So that's how I would say you should go about it. But again, I would look into the resources from your school specifically. Okay. Are there any other questions?
I see one question asking, when should I start on my college essays?
College essays, start as soon as possible. I completely think this is something I was given this advice and I didn't take it and I wish I had. Start as soon as you possibly can. Maybe I take that with a grain of salt. What I mean is start immediately after your junior year. So, or towards the end of your junior year. So you really utilize that summer to start mapping out what you want your college essays to look like. It's so important to know because that way you can fine-tune them to the absolute amount of perfection that you're looking for your essays. And that way you also allow yourself a lot of time to get feedback. Feedback from professionals is so critical. I also think that's one of the best things, excuse me, I was able to do for myself was to ask for a lot of feedback. But again, one thing I will say is that feedback should be taken with a grain of salt because a person, while well-intended, might not be able to craft your story for you the way that you need to craft it. So get feedback, especially I would say from your literature teachers or your English teachers, whoever you look up to, that's a professional. I would definitely say, hey, can you read my essays for me? I think it'd be really great if you could help me out with that. And overall, I would just say start as early as you can because you really need as much time more time than you think. And when I say that as because when you get to senior year, you're like, oh, everything's smooth and breezy, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're hit with a bunch of coursework. Boom, you have all these senior events. Boom, essays are due. Oh no, early action, early decision essays are due already. Oh no, I'm not prepared, I'm not ready. They're not perfect. They're not what I want them to be. So just start them. End of your junior year, that summer, just start writing them. You can always write more as your senior year progresses, or you can rewrite some if you find that, oh, actually I have something else more significant that I want to talk about. But end of junior year, I would say that's your goal. That's what you want to aim for. Other questions?
So as a final announcement, someone asked about what the name of the website was for chancing, and that's CollegeVine, to whoever who asked. Additionally, if this was a great session for you, we suggest checking out the College Application Guidance Program. We'll have this same content except very concentrated over 6 weeks. By the end of the summer, you should have all your college stuff ready to go, with revisions from Stanford mentors and closely working with your parent as well as your student to really get that advantage in college admissions. And so if there's no more questions, then I think we can wrap it up. Thank you for joining, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone.